I wonder how you respond when I say the word no. No. Stop. Don't do that. So you said whatever. Some people, you might suddenly have this feeling of like, oh, I've done something wrong, or I shouldn't have done that, or what have I done that I've not realised I've done wrong? No. I find myself saying no and stop quite a lot at the moment with Jonah. There's so many things that he wants to do that Saz and I don't want him to do. This word discipline comes up in these verses that Val just read for us. It says in verse 7, endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? Discipline. The discipline of a parent or a teacher or a carer, whatever it might be. And for many of us, maybe all of us potentially, discipline is quite a hard word. Maybe because we've experienced discipline that has not been particularly pleasant, or has been actually, maybe it's gone from discipline to what we might say now is abuse, potentially. Discipline isn't a particularly comforting word. It might be quite a painful word. In the name of discipline, sadly, lots of awful things have taken place. Whether that be parent to child, teacher to student, or maybe even church leader to congregation. Sadly, awful things have happened in the church in the name of discipline. And there are physical and emotional scars that remain for many people. That may be you, I don't know. So when we hear this word discipline from God, maybe some of us, we naturally hesitate and think, oh, I'm not sure I want to read that. I'm not really sure I want to keep listening to what James has to say about this passage. Because discipline is a really hard word, I think. I wonder if you've noticed that in our culture, the word no has kind of almost been taken out in some ways. You sometimes hear of kids going to school, and for the first time, they're told no in the classroom. And Susanna has told me that in her experience as a teacher, you know the kids who've not been told no before. Because when they're told no, they have an absolute meltdown. Because it's the first time they've been told that they can't do whatever they want. They can't have whatever they want. We're experiencing this with Jonah, as I said a moment ago. And sometimes I wonder, is there a possibility that sometimes what we're doing is being cruel? Jonah is 1 year old. He doesn't really, I think he does know what he shouldn't and shouldn't do, because he gives you this cheeky little smile just before he does it. But he's just exploring. He's just trying to find out about the world. Should I just let him do whatever he wants? Move whatever he wants? Open whatever he wants? Touch whatever he wants? No, I don't think so. But when I tell him no, or Susanna tells him no, he's not particularly happy about it. And sometimes he'll throw himself on the floor and sort of bury his face in the carpet. Other times he'll stand there like this and go, ah. Sometimes he'll just put his head down like that. And then a moment later, he's fine and he moves on. He does something else. But the reason we do this discipline with Jonah, we say no, is because we want to keep him safe. We want him to live in a way that is life-giving, that is flourishing, that is away from danger and keeps him safe. It comes out of love. In these first few verses that Val read for us, it speaks about a struggle against sin. It says, in your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And what this verse shows us is actually that all of us, the people, not Paul, I was going to say Paul, we don't know who wrote this letter. I'm so used to preaching from other things, I automatically say Paul, but it's not Paul. It could be Paul, but we don't know. Whoever is writing this letter to the people, they all struggled with sin. It's something they all struggled with. And what that means is they all needed discipline. Because God calls us, and the people here and us now, he calls us to a holy life. A life where we love God and we love others above ourselves. Not because God is cruel and he just wants us to live in his ways, because he wants, I don't know, he wants us to control us. He wants us to be like little puppets. But actually the reality is he has loved us in that way. That's what he has done for us. He has put us above himself. And he calls us to do that for others. But where we are not like God is we get it wrong. We all get it wrong. We all sin. Whether you're a Christian or not, I'm sure you've experienced that inner feeling of, I know what is right, I know what is wrong, and I sometimes do what is right and sometimes I don't. Don't know if you experience that. It's also something that the Bible talks about, that Paul talks about. That this one is actually Paul, talking about this battle within. He knows the right things to do, he knows the good things of God, and yet he finds that he keeps doing the stuff that he shouldn't do. And what we need is a Father God who doesn't just leave us in that situation, leave us in our sin. And in these words, there's a quote from Proverbs chapter 3, which says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline and do not lose heart when he rebukes you." And this is the key verse. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. The Lord disciplines the one he loves. Do you see that discipline is something that actually flows out of love for someone? It doesn't flow out of anger. So when Susanna and I discipline Jonah, saying no, eventually when he understands what it means, the naughty step, taking away toys, taking away treats, whatever it might be. If you've got any other tips and tricks, let me know as we go on. We don't do it because we want him to suffer. We do it because we love him. We want what's best for him. We want him to live in this way where he will grow, where he will flourish, where he will thrive, where he will experience joy. Discipline flows from love. God disciplines his children not because they're his enemies and he wants to get them, but he does it because they are his children and he loves them so much. But more than that, we are going to get on to look at what discipline means in a moment, just to let you know, or what it might look like. But before we get there, verse 8. If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. What that's saying is actually, if we experience God showing us how to live, if we experience hardship in life, if we experience God's discipline, then actually it is a sign that we are his children. It's not a sign that he has rejected us, but it's actually a sign that he is our Father, because that's what a loving father does for his children. And his purpose is that we may share in his holiness, in his life, in his goodness. It's a sign of being his children. Now, the question of what does God's discipline look like in our lives is one that I really have been grappling with this week. I'm still thinking about what it actually looks like. In this letter, it points back to Proverbs, where Israel were experiencing hardships. They were experiencing suffering. Life was not easy for them. And often it was God calling them back to live for him. And there's a verse in Amos chapter 4 where we read that actually it says that God sent famine. God sent drought. God sent hardship. And there's this repeated line, yet you did not return to me. Yet you did not return to me. He didn't send these things to his people just because he felt like it. He thought, I'm just going to take away the water for a bit. I'm going to make their lives really difficult just for the sake of it. He did it because the people, his people, had rejected him, had lived and acted in awful ways. And if you want to go back to Amos when you get home and have a read of that in those first few chapters. But he was calling them back. And in these verses in Hebrews, we find that some of the people were experiencing hardship. In chapter 10, it says in verse 32, remember those earlier days after you've received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecutions. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property, because you knew that you yourselves had better and lasting possessions. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. The people are finding life hard. And the reason they're finding life hard is because they have accepted Jesus. They are living for him. And they're experiencing this persecution because of that. And I think the reality is that sometimes God allows difficult circumstances, hardships, suffering, whatever it might be, to almost stop us in our tracks, to show us where our hearts are, to call us back to him. And the reason I found this really hard thinking about this week is because there's a danger that we read chapters like this in chapter 12 where it talks about God's discipline. We read things in the Old Testament where God is sending these things to his people because they've disobeyed him. And then we go away and we think, well, every single thing that happens to me that is hard, that is bad, that is suffering, that is painful, is a direct result of something I've done wrong. I don't know if you've ever thought that, you've ever felt that is what is happening. And I think it is right to say that it is not that every hardship, every time of suffering is God disciplining us for a specific sin. We can't say, well, I fell over on Monday when I was running and I've hurt my hand and my knee and my pride. And I could read these verses and say, well, I did that morning. I spared in my car, or I was rude to someone, or I just completely ignored my morning Bible reading, and God made me trip over when I was running, so he'd pull me back into his presence. I don't know if that would be a right thing to think. It would be a really dangerous way to think, because we spend all our time thinking, well, what have I done this morning that's made this happen? Or maybe for people in You hear of places where there's all these fires at the moment, like in Spain, in France. You hear of places, was it Venezuela, where there was this awful earthquake, where we say, this is happening because of that sin that they committed. And that is a really dangerous place to be. And I think there's a lot of damage that has been done and potentially could be done even more by getting that wrong. It's not that bad things only happen to people who've done bad things. But what I think I've seen this week is I've been looking through these verses and asking God to help me, is actually that it's not that every hardship is a result of a specific sin, but every hardship can call us back to God. God can use any kind of suffering, any kind of pain, any hardship we go to bring us back to him. It's an opportunity for deeper faith, deeper repentance, deeper dependence on God. Because God's goal is not destruction for us. His goal is restoration. His goal is to bring us back to him. A few years ago, I was trying to think of an example of when I feel like I've experienced the discipline of God. A few years ago, I was really struggling with a particular sin. And I went out for a run with a friend at the time. And I just felt really tight in my chest. I was really struggling to breathe, and I had to stop running, which I don't normally experience unless I'm trying to run really fast. But it was just quite a leisurely run out with a friend, and we were chatting. And I just couldn't catch my breath. My chest hurt. My head just felt, when you feel sort of almost like numb. And he asked me, we stopped and we walked for a bit, and he asked me what was going on. And I shared with him, well, actually, I don't know if this is linked to this, but I'm really struggling with this at this moment. And while we were walking, we prayed, we talked about it, and I actually felt this kind of weight go away. Whether that is the weight of guilt or shame, maybe that is God just trying to show me, trying to bring me back to him, to expose my sin. I don't know. But the point is, God took something that was happening in me, and he showed me how he wanted me to live for him. And although that was quite stressful, painful, it's something I thank God for, because it was his way of showing me that I was getting this wrong, and he wanted me to repent and live for him. Discipline is painful. It's not pleasant. The verses that we read a moment ago show us this. It says in verse 11, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained in it." Discipline is painful. It's not pleasant. As Jonah grows up and he sits on the naughty step for however long, he's not going to enjoy it. He's not going to come back and say, "Oh, thank you so much for putting me on the step, Dad." Or just saying, "Oh, I've done that wrong. I'll be off to the step for a little time of reflection." We'll have to put him there. And I imagine keep putting him back there because he'll keep getting up. And I really look forward to that. Discipline is painful. It's not pleasant. In the moment, we probably won't be thanking God for this suffering we're experiencing, this hardship we're experiencing. But I'm sure we will thank him after. Because although discipline is painful, it is never pointless. Because of what it produces. It produces a harvest of righteousness, a harvest of peace. It's doing something in us. It's drawing us back to God. It produces fruit. And as we come to a close, I just wanted to finish by talking about the work of the cross, because I think that is really important as we think about this topic of discipline. Because what it doesn't say in these verses is endure punishment. Endure hardship as punishment on your life. It doesn't say for what children are not punished by their father. It says disciplined. And the reality is that for the Christian, the punishment for sin has already been paid for. Jesus at the cross received the punishment from his Father for our sin, for my sin, for your sin. Jesus, who went through immense pain and suffering. The cross wasn't pleasant. It was the opposite. But he went through it because he knew it was going to produce something that was so worth the pain. To bring us back to God, to make a way for us to be in relationship with him. So don't lose heart, this passage reminds us. Don't lose heart. Keep following Christ, looking to him as our example of someone who has gone through pain, suffering, for us because of his love, but who is still at work in us. God doesn't just leave us in our sin where we are, but he saves us from it, and then he calls us to keep trying, keep going, keep living for him. Growing into a deeper relationship with him, deeper holiness, deeper peace, deeper experiences of what it means to know righteousness, to know peace.